Good morning. Thank you all for joining us again. My name is Juliet Simone, Community Health Manager at the Oasis Institute in St. Louis, Missouri. And today we're going to talk about free from falls, natural and unnatural habitats. As we mentioned in the free from falls talk, there are intrinsic and extrinsic risk factors for falls. And this talk will focus on the extrinsic risk factors, or the risk factors that are outside of our person. That would be anything in the environment that can cause someone to trip or slip or lose their balance. In the home, those may be rugs, cords, pets, stairs, bathrooms, anything that can cause someone to trip or slip. Outside of the home, maybe uneven surfaces, weather, and then bad lighting, bad shoes, any of that can be either inside or outside or both. So there are risk factors that are modifiable and also some that are not modifiable. And some of the things in our home specifically here are modifiable. And we may not all be able to have an elevator installed to get to the basement to do laundry. That may be cost prohibitive. However, there are many things that we can all do for free or very low cost that can make our home environment a lot safer. So if more than half of the falls for most older adults happen at or around the home, then I think it's worth taking a closer look at what we can do to modify that environment specifically. So the research says that falls in the home usually result in a combination of risk factors. So not just the rug, right? But also maybe in combination with a medication that makes you dizzy, or lower body weakness, or potentially bad footwear. So when we think, backwards about falls, right? Like the forensics of a fall, usually it's more than one thing no matter what. But that's especially true for the home environment. So it's a combination of things. And what was interesting as I was doing some research on this and reviewing the literature about home environments and falls is that older people with fair balance may be at greater risk from home hazards than people with poor balance or good balance. And so I thought about that a little bit more and read more about that particular statement. And then it started to make sense. People with poor balance may have, they may be moving around a little bit less, right? And so in that sense, their risk factors for falls may be decreased if they're not moving around as much within the home per se. And then people with good balance may find a rug or a hazard like that and be able to catch themselves. So that's why those people with the fair balance, kind of in the middle there, seem to be more susceptible to home hazards. Interesting. So then when should I modify my home? Okay, right now I'm perfectly good. I've got great balance. I'm in good shape. I don't feel dizzy from any medications. So, okay, that's fine. People with the research suggests that people with home hazards should really start looking at those and reducing those risks if they have a history of falls and limited mobility. However, it's never too early to start thinking about that, right? For instance, my mom remodeled her bathroom recently, and she's perfectly mobile at this time, but she was thinking about the next 20 years. And so made sure that the toilet was at a good height, and that the shower was easy to get into and had a grab bar installed and things like that. So even though you may not specifically benefit from some of those home hazard reductions, until you maybe have had some falls or limited mobility, it's never too early to have those modifications, and it's certainly not going to hurt anything, right? I use my grab bar in my bathroom all the time. I really do. Thinking about floors is really an important element, not surprising again. So there are a lot of low-cost modifications that can be done at home to reduce the risk of falls. So tossing out all throw rugs is just the best idea. But if we are really emotionally attached to a specific rug, which sometimes that's a thing, right? There are ways to make rugs safer. So it's best to probably just get rid of them. But if we have to keep them, make sure they have like a rubber backing on them so they're not slipping on the floor. And most bathroom rugs that you buy now do have that rubber backing. However, what happens when you toss it in the wash and the dryer, you know, over time, that backing will really disintegrate, right? So it's good to just, you know, keep making sure that you're monitoring the quality of the back of the rug. And there is stuff that you can buy at home improvement stores, hardware stores. It's like double-sided sticky stuff that you can put on the back there to help, not to necessarily attach to the floor, but to make it that rubbery, no slip grip kind of thing. Cleaning up water and spills immediately is a good habit to get into. And one thing that I think is kind of funny is, you know, sometimes like ice trays, like I have an ice tray, not, you know, something like the automatic ones, but, you know, sometimes like an ice cube will just go flying. And if you leave an ice cube on the floor long enough, it turns into water, right? So it's easy to forget sometimes about those ice cubes that are flyaways, to clean those up. Making sure that you are reducing clutter, especially on the floor. That's really crucial to reducing risks, and making sure that paths are clean and that cords aren't lying through walking areas. It's also very vital to ensuring that your home is safe. And a lot of older homes may have fewer outlets, you know, like in the living room. And so, you know, that's when you really can see extension cords on extension cords on extension cords, where it may become more of a hazard. There are other obstacles and tripping hazards, such as pets. So anyone who has an animal, big or small, knows that they can often be kind of in the way and can increase your chance of tripping over them. Cats are kind of notorious for kind of walking about a half a step in front of you at all times. So you can never quite get a full stride without them being somehow weaving between your feet. And also, you know, and then of course, if you're walking dogs, you know, sometimes, and you get the leash, you know, you play like the leash game and they're all around you and just seem determined to trip you up. And you can see there the picture on the right as an example of a very cluttered home. And it's really just rife with obstacles and tripping hazards, right? There's some other things that we can do around many parts of the home to help reduce our risk of falling. And proper lighting is really important in all rooms in the home. But something that sometimes we forget about specifically too are hallways being well lit. So sometimes if you have especially like a really long hallway and you've got rooms, you know, off of the hallway on either side, you may have light coming into the hallway from this room and this room and this room. But if you're walking down the hallway, you're coming in and out of darkness. And it might be hard sometimes for your eyes to adjust and make you more likely to fall. So making sure that your hallways are really well lit is important. And you can always supplement any kind of overhead lighting with night lights, just that can stay on all the time even. but especially obviously at night. Stairwells being well lit are important too, and many stairwells down into basements especially don't have like the dual switch where you can turn it on at the top and then off at the bottom. So I think it's just good practice to just, you know, leave it on. It's safer than turning it off and trying to navigate the return trip in the dark, right? Also making sure that stairwells ideally even have 2 handrails. So sometimes, you know, they're a little too narrow. 1 is better than none, of course. 2 is better than 1. And making sure that those stairs are also free of clutter. So most of us probably get in the habit of putting something on the staircase that will, oh, we'll take that up with the next trip, right? Well, it might be the next trip. So something to keep in mind. And making sure that steps aren't slippery. There's tread tape that you can buy for, you know, like kind of concrete or older stairs into the basement, or even the couple of concrete steps that you have to take from the garage to the kitchen, for example. They can be pretty slippery. So they have this nice tread tape that works indoors or outdoors, and you can put an outdoor or a grab bar outdoor as well. Hopefully play this short little video. So this is a really neat way that you can imagine yourself looking at this very beige staircase, which is already a little tough to see the contrast between stairs, right? But then the video shows what it would be like looking at that staircase with vision that starts to yellow. And then you add cataracts onto that field of vision, and then followed by glaucoma. So we talked a little bit about bathrooms earlier, and yes, they can be a very hazardous place. We also tend to spend a lot of time in there too, right? So, I mean, just again, by the sort of statistics of where we spend time, the bathroom is going to be, or time spent in the bathroom will increase our risk because we're in there a lot. And there are lots of potential variables that can make it hazardous. Water being one of them, of course, and usually a slipperier floor, tile usually, right? So it's a little bit slipperier. So we want to make sure that you have grab bars in bathrooms, of course. Again, 1 is better than 0, 2 is better than 1. And you want to make sure that those are installed by a carpenter because they have to be in studs. And what's the opposite of a grab bar in studs? A grab bar with suction cups. So throw those away, please. Just don't use them. I think it's arguably more dangerous to have a grab bar. I'm going to say that in air quotes, a grab bar with suction cups that gives you a false sense of security than it is to have nothing at all. And a grab bar can be used as a towel rack, but a towel rack cannot be used as a grab bar. They are not installed into studs. So if you go for that towel rack on your way down, it's probably going to come with you. You can make any of the surfaces safer with non-skid mats, of course, in the tub, in the shower, outside of the tub, outside of the shower. And you can make sure that the toilet seat is a correct height to make sure that you can get up and down safely. There are toilet seats that you can, put on top of it to make them a little bit taller if you need, if you're a taller person. That makes it easier to get up and down. Occupational therapists know everything about that stuff. And also with shower chairs, how to transfer in and out. Occupational therapists have all the tricks for those. You want to make sure also that your water temperature isn't too hot. So if you can change, if you have like a digital sort of thermometer on your water heater, you can lower that to about 120. That way you make sure that you don't accidentally get scalded, which, if you just have water that's too hot, or, there are also horror stories of people accidentally falling and turning on the hot water and then being stuck under that. So if you just kind of cap the temperature that it can be at ever, you hopefully prevent that from happening. You also want to make sure that you don't lock yourself in the bathroom. That way, in case you do fall, it's going to be tough for somebody to come in and get you, especially if you're kind of behind behind the door. Many bathrooms are pretty small, and so if you fall behind the bathroom door and someone has to break the door down to get to you, it's going to be really tough. These are also 2 short videos that won't play, but you can use your imagination here to see how contrast can really help differentiate surfaces. So I know that the toilet seat on the left looks a little institutional, but if you kind of squint your eyes, you can imagine what that looks like if you have some vision problems like glaucoma or cataracts. And then also you can see there on the right that little threshold is, you know, a little lip to get into the shower. And many of us have that. It's very low, you know, so it's not like getting over a huge tub, but if you don't see it, you still might trip. But you don't have to compromise style for function. You can get a high contrast toilet seat that's a little more interesting if you'd like, depending on how brave you are or musically inclined. Shoes and footwear. So, you know, like many things, there's a spectrum, right? But there are some certain shoes that I would just recommend pretending don't exist in the whole world and just throwing them away and never thinking about them again. And that would be the 3 on the left here. So any kind of flip-flop and slipper like that, like even just those words, right? They sound dangerous. Flip-flop, slipper, like those are 2 things I don't want to happen to me. And then when you Google dangerous shoes, some pretty funny things come up, but that was one of them as well. So I liked that. So of course, like really tall shoes or with heels, of course, are going to increase your risk for falls. And then on the right side, those are better options. So you can get water shoes to replace what you would, you know, where you would maybe be more likely to use a flip-flop at a pool or a beach or whatever. You can get those kind of water shoes that can go dry and wet. And then, of course, you've got like just a nice closed toe, flat shoe for, you know, kind of everyday use. And then if you really do like a house shoe, there are safer versions than the slipper. If you get one that at least covers your foot that doesn't, you know, just slip off if you just kind of kick your foot a little bit. So the National Council on Aging highlights 6 steps to prevent a fall. And 5 of those relate to the intrinsic risk factors that we talked about in another talk, but one of them, and a very important one, talks about those modifiable risk factors in the home environment. So the first one, again, for some of the intrinsic things, are finding a good balance and exercise program. We recommend talking to your healthcare provider about the other risk factors for falls. Talking to your pharmacist will help manage medications, be it prescription and over-the-counter. Getting regular checkups, especially vision and hearing, can make sure that you're up to date and have the best sensory input that you can have. And then here's modify your home. So this is an important thing that many of us can do with pretty low cost and effective interventions. And finally, get support too. You know, most families will help with some of those things around the home to make sure that they're safer and keep us all independent and home as long as we want to be. And remember, prevention saves lives, and most falls are preventable. If you have any other questions, you can contact us for more information. Any questions? Thank you.